Well, very good afternoon. Let's get you the latest. We have breaking news coming in. I'm Divya Vadva. You're watching NDTV 24/7. Now, India's MiG-21 fighter jets, which have been in service since 1963, will be retiring with a ceremonial farewell that's going to be taking place. Well, the jets, which served in every major conflict since 1965, earned a mixed legacy due to their long service and also as far as their record is concerned. Vishnu joining us to get us the very latest. Vishnu, when does this come into effect as far as the MiG-21 fighter jets that are now going to be retired? And this really is something that's been in effect since 1963, in service since 1963, but the jets have had a mixed legacy at that.
Well, the Indian Air Force will cease operations of the MiG-21 in September 2025. It couldn't be a day longer than this. There have been calls for the retirement of the MiG-21 now for several decades. It's because of the slow process of procurement in the Indian Air Force that we've got the MiG-21 still flying. At this stage, as I understand it, there are 2 squadrons of MiG-21 still operational, approximately 36 odd aircraft. These are relatively advanced variants of the MiG-21 called the MiG-21 Bison. But if you ask anybody, the Indian Air Force and the MiG-21 are synonymous. Approximately 870 MiG-21s have been built and for India and operated by the Indian Air Force. More than that have been built, but these have been operated by the Indian Air Force. A large number of them, approximately 670 odd MiG-21s, were built by Hindustan Aeronautics. The MiG-21 has had a role in the 71 war, a smaller role in 1965. It even had a role in the Kargil war. It was flown by Wing Commander Abhinandan Vartman during the Balakot operations, where he apparently shot down a Pakistani F-16 before being shot down himself. Unclear if this was deployed during Operation Sindoor. But the Indian Air Force is synonymous with the MiG-21. Any senior officer still in service would have done service in the MiG-21, but it has a sad legacy as well. It's had a relatively poor crash record. This is a source of dispute, of course, in the Indian Air Force. Many would suggest that the overall crash rate of the MiG-21, given the vintage of the aircraft, is not something extraordinary, but several hundred pilots have lost their lives for a variety of reasons, not necessarily pilot error, in flying on the MiG-21. It's a single-engine fighter. It was designed as an interceptor. It flies extremely fast. It touches Mach 2, in fact, goes beyond Mach 2. The Indian Air Force subsequently adapted it for a ground attack role as well. It became a fairly capable multi-role fighter in its final avatar, which is called the Bison, which is in service of the remaining 36 as the Bison variant. So the MiG-21 has been critical for the Indian Air Force, particularly at a time when it was crucial to build up the numbers of aircraft available. Remember, the MiG-21 back in the 60s was acquired at a time when America was not as friendly with us then as they are today. There was a demand or a request for India to be armed. The F-104 Starfighter was something India was looking at. That was not coming India's way. And so, we were left with this particular platform, which the Soviets rushed into India. The early variants of the MiG-21 didn't even have a gun. They were firing first-generation air-to-air missiles, which missed more often than they struck their targets. But eventually this was adapted to include a gun pod on the MiG-21. More advanced missiles came along, and these played a big role. Certainly in the 1971 war, they played a big role. They were involved in ground attack missions as well, in addition to air superiority missions. So the MiG-21, formed several squadrons, including the best-known squadrons of the Indian Air Force. And in September, when they are finally retired, it would be, the end of a really massive era, an era lasting, 5 odd decades for the Indian Air Force, and one that the Indian Air Force at certain levels would want to end, because they want the MiG-21 to be replaced by more contemporary types. That contemporary type will be the Tejas fighter, which has been ordered in large numbers or in significant numbers, and is now being inducted into service with the IAF.
Right, of course, been in service for 60 years. Well, it is the MiG-21 fighter jet that is now scheduled for formal retirement with that ceremonial send-off, like Vishnu was mentioning, that's going to take place in the month of September. But Vishnu, take us through the issues the troubled history of accidents. And we're talking about more than 200 pilots and 50 civilians who lost their lives in crashes involving the jet.
Yeah, that's right. And, this is the part which I was speaking about earlier on. In as much as we talk about the role of the Indian Air Force and the MiG-21 and the fact that, we didn't really have much of an option but to induct these in very large numbers, it is a fact that, and I don't have the exact number off the top of me, but, it would be well more than 100 pilots who've lost their lives as a result of incidents on the MiG-21, not just pilot error, but mechanical issues, other issues as well. There has been attrition during war as well of the MiG-21 platform. But that era is now coming to an end. Let me explain, one of the reasons which people tend to forget is that aircraft, designed in the late 50s, which is what the MiG-21 was. It was inducted into the Indian Air Force in 1963 or so. They have a vintage design. It's much more difficult to fly. Visibility out of the cockpit has always been restricted.
Right.
There are certain regimes in the flight of the aircraft where it becomes difficult to operate. So despite all of that, it's had a role to play, a massive role in the Indian Air Force. But certainly the fact that the IAF is finally replacing its MiG-21s and decommissioning the remaining ones is an indicator of the urgent need to move beyond the past and into the future.
Right, as a result of its poor safety record, of course, the aircraft had also earned grim nicknames at that. And of course, this really is coming about at a time while Vishnu getting us all the details of the 840 aircrafts built between 1966 and 1984, more than half were lost due to accidents. Thank you so much, Vishnu, for getting us the very latest.